Remember yesterday we had a conversation about human rights and mental health. This morning we are talking about sexual harassment and human rights. With me, Mr. Ansar Mohammed and Ms. Sara Martinez, both students of the Hugh Wooding Law School, the young aspiring attorneys, and they are going to talk to us about sexual harassment and human rights. And I want to start with Mr. Mohammed to explain to us what sexual harassment is all about.
Okay, so sexual harassment is not a new problem. It's always existed and it continues to exist, and it often manifests itself into the workplace. So sexual harassment is simply uninvited or unwelcome behavior of a sexual nature that makes people feel uncomfortable or intimidated or things like that. And in breaking down this definition further, we look to 5 different characteristics, and the first is that it's subjective in nature. So what you may consider to be sexual harassment to you may be different to me.
Yeah.
The act itself is not necessarily physical, but it can be non-verbal. It can be simple things as catcalling or sending or rubbing up against someone can constitute it. It can happen to anyone at any place at any time. And the last one, it has a lasting impact on persons. So it can have a emotional or mental impact on persons. So that's simply.
And Sarah, there are laws in place for people to make reports if they feel as though they're being sexually harassed.
Well, the issue that we also want to address is that there are no sexual harassment laws in Trinidad that have been enacted. If a worker has been sexually harassed and wishes to take it to the courts, what they would have to do is file a complaint under sexual discrimination. And in addition to that, various companies have their own workplace policies with regard to sexual harassment. But what we really want to focus on is that there's no legislation put in place specifically.
And this is why we have young people coming on, so we can get the conversation going as to what is needed for Trinidad and Tobago. And one thing that you said that we need is sexual harassment legislation.
Yes, definitely.
How do you see us going about doing that?
Well, the Ministry of Labour has a draft policy, and the Equal Opportunities Commission has also come out with a guideline in terms of policies relating to sexual harassment. So there have been things put in place to enact legislation. The only issue is that it hasn't been enacted yet. So as of right now, it is completely dependent on the guidelines of the policy and the, filing for complaints against discrimination against your sex.
And Ansar, that doesn't sound too good for us.
It's not at all. So what we would like to do is advocate for the government to really step up and take standalone legislation for sex harassment, because what persons have to do right now is that they have to fit themselves within different areas of the law to find a remedy. So what they have available to them is they are not without a remedy. However, it should be in a better situation. So they can make a constitutional claim under our constitution. They can make an industrial court action. They can fall into criminal law and indecent assault. And there are other remedies available to persons. But we need something to make sexual harassment a priority for particular legislation for it.
And based on what Ansar said, it is all up to a person's judgment if they feel as though they're being sexually harassed. You need to probably clearly define it.
Well, what would happen is if you feel like you've been sexually harassed, you should lodge a complaint, and then an investigation will be conducted into the conduct of the person that has been accused of sexual harassment to determine if it fits the definition. So it is subjective. It is subject to investigation.
Ansar, but how are you and your team of young colleagues going to probably champion this move to have the sexual harassment legislation
Okay,
be brought?
so our group in the Hugh Wooding Law School, the Human Rights Clinic, we are doing this is our way of a campaign towards social sexual harassment awareness, and we're doing this in the form of a booklet that would be available in electronic or PDF form or physical copy, and we have different aspects of sexual harassment that we are addressing. So we first want to define it and telling people about the remedies available to them. We want to talk about the male perspective, because there's the notion that men don't get sexually harassed.
Exactly.
And we're going into like the domestic aspect of it and different aspects of it, and it would be available to persons, and we can ask our tutors send it to you all to
and I would be willing to invite you all back to have that conversation. Mr. Ansar Mohammed, Sara Martinez, both students of the Hugh Wooding Law School, thank you very much for coming in this morning to talk to us about sexual harassment and human rights.